What's going on, FA Nation? Welcome to the Fantasy Live DFS NBA live stream. I'm John Pemba. With us, as always, James Grande. James, we're here breaking down Friday 7 Gamer. Some interesting injury news sort of breaking a little bit as we get online here. With Victor Oladipo now being considered questionable.
Yeah.
How does that impact tonight's slate for you?
I mean, I loved him tonight, and he's had a really safe floor basically all season, but we've also seen the upside recently. I know Justin Fensterman is a big fan of him, if you checked out the starting five video as well. I mean, it kind of stinks, but we've kind of been waiting for Valley to open up. We had the, obviously, Kyrie news earlier break and the Dragic news early, so everyone and their mother and their mother's mother and their mother's mother's mother are going to be on the same kind of value plays. So if Oladipo were to sit, this obviously presents some more interesting value that might be lesser owned because we're approaching lineup block here in less than an hour.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's definitely something that we need to monitor, and of course, we always do. We always sort of pay attention to what we're going to do here in terms of injury news and roster builds, and that's why we kind of give ourselves a little bit of buffer, between the end of the live stream and lineup log. So James and I be in the lineup, the subscriber chat, really to update, everything that we can for you guys. But James, let's just kind of go over some of the high totals on this slate.
Yeah, so Washington Orlando currently sits at a 220, only a 3-point spread, so that's an interesting game. Charlotte Philadelphia 225.5 with a 6-point spread favored for Philly. 226.5 in Atlanta, Detroit. I think that game has pop-off potential, and I love the fact that Detroit's only 5-point favorites. Atlanta plays at the fastest pace in the league, so Pistons tonight, please. And then the late night hammers, John and I always call it, 232 in Minnesota, Sacramento, only a 2.5-point spread. Right now, Jimmy Butler probable, but a lot of things can change. Maybe he just doesn't want to play tonight, and he just says, yeah, I'm going to take tonight off. So awesome. We obviously have to watch. We have to watch all the way up until 10:30. I mean, it's a Friday, thankfully. So all those nobody has
on FanDuel. Right. It's a set it, forget it, and just play your guys play. Right. So before we kick it off, before we jump down, breaking the point guard position, let's hit up our sponsor here, Fantasy Factor. You want the NBA Playbook Pro free on Fantasy Live? Well, Fantasy Factor has you covered. Just sign up for a new account, make your first deposit, and Fantasy Factor will give you the NBA season for free. Plus, for a limited time, Fantasy Factor will throw in the NFL Playbook Pro for the rest of the season too. That's a $400 value for free. Go to fantasyalarm.com/factorNFL. That's fantasyalarm.com/factorNFL. $400 worth of value free. NBA Playbook Pro, NFL Season Playbook Pro for the rest of the year. Pretty big deal there. Definitely go and check out Fantasy Factor.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys heard what John said. Free. So sign me up, please. Please.
More injury updates. Just calling Oladipo questionable. We know that already. Can you just let us know if he's going to play? That's what, the Indiana and Miami game is at 8:00, so it's like really not when it's just after roster lock. So again, we're gonna have to hope and wait for that injury news to come out. But let's start off at the point guard position here, James. Over on FanDuel, John Wall kicks it off 9.9K against Orlando, a matchup you and I both really like. We like attacking DJ Augustine. Didn't really work out if you played Reggie Jackson against Detroit last game. Like you and I were sort of high on him, but Ish Smith still had a good game. What do you think about John Wall here in this matchup?
I love John Wall tonight, and I think it's really telling that Washington's playing him 38 and 41 minutes the last two games. Like, that's what first off, that's what we want to see in cash games. We want to see the minutes. So I think John Wall is viable for all formats. And obviously, you mentioned Augustine's going to be guarding him. 117 defensive rating, negative 2.8 defensive box score plus minus. So he is literally horrible defensively. The Magic are top 10 worst against point guards, backing that theory up. I like him more over on DraftKings at 9.1, but I don't have a problem at 9.9 either. I don't know if there is an upside at 9.9K on FanDuel. I think there's enough floor to use him in a cash game over there, but we could play him in all formats over on DraftKings at 9.1K.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, again, this is really the price that you and I always discuss about John Wall, where you never really see him go for these huge 60, 70-point games. He does have the ability to get a triple-double. We don't really see it. So his fantasy value is usually capped around 50. So when he gets into that upper nines, there's not really too much value there for him. But I can definitely see him over on DraftKings tonight at 9.1. Definitely possible. And on FanDuel, given some of the value that's sort of opening up, maybe he's not the worst decision to go there. You brought up, right before we went on air here, Kemba Walker against Philadelphia. The last time they played each other this season, Walker took over 30 shots and put up 60 fantasy points. Do you go back to the well here with Kemba?
It's kind of hard not to, right? Just hearing that and knowing we have a good total. Philly plays it at up-tempo pace, so we're going to get Charlotte up-tempo, more possessions for Kemba. And to be honest, we're just watching Nick Batum stand in a corner. Nobody is threatening Kemba from taking shots. There is all the opportunity in the world for him to take every shot on the floor that he feels fit and open enough to take. Yeah. So we could potentially, I don't think 30 is realistic, but I think with in the 20s, mid to lower 20s is a realistic expectation tonight. And he's been really good passing the ball this year, which is weird because he doesn't have really anyone around him, but 6 assists, and he crashes the glass enough for 4 rebounds. There's no more Dwight Howard there. So yeah. Marvin Williams isn't a good rebounding power forward. So Kemba just has been doing it all. I like him for all formats tonight. I think he's safe. He has a nice floor. I really like him here.
And I think if you kind of look at the top guys, especially over on FanDuel, you're looking at Wall 9.9, Simmons at 8.7. Walker we've seen already put up, on average, probably closer to more points. Actually is more FanDuel points than John Wall. So you're getting, a $700 discount on him there. Actually $1,300 discount on Wall. # math. And then you have, the same thing with Ben Simmons, who's $9,700. Walker's averaging more fantasy points per game than him. So you're getting a guy that's averaging more fantasy points per game than the 2 higher priced players, and in a spot where he's already faced Philadelphia and put up 60. So, for me, I think Walker should be, considered to be in most of your lineup, maybe even a core part of your lineup tonight.
Yeah, and he gets more usage than both of them too. Yep. So we just know he's going to shoot the ball regardless if it's going in or not. He's shooting the ball. Period.
Yeah, for sure. Moving down sort of the mid tier, another guy that was in the starting 5 video today. Both, James and I both like Trae Young against Detroit. Again, we like to attack Reggie Jackson defense. I think he's at 112. It's the worst on the Pistons, so can definitely go in that direction with Trae Young, a guy that shoots. I think he leads the Hawks in scoring. We've seen him get double-doubles a handful of times. He had 3 straight double-doubles before the Knicks game where he just missed it by 2 assists. We've seen his ceiling already go for over 50 twice. This could be a game where it goes a little bit back and forth. I think, you're going to see Atlanta have to take a lot of outside shots, given sort of the big guys that Detroit has with, Griffin and Drummond. So I think this is a good spot for Young here.
Yeah, and I think he's going to check in at a lower ownership. We have him projected just around 5%, and that's so perfect in terms of GPPs because we all know who the point guards are going to be owned tonight. It's going to be Derrick Rose. It's going to be Tyler Johnson. It's going to be Terry Rozier. And I think I'm missing someone, probably, and Kemba Walker.
Yeah.
So using Young as a tournament pivot is such a good idea tonight. And like you said, Reggie Jackson, 112 defensive rating, Pistons ranked 21st in DVP against point guard. So we have both going for us. Like you said, he's not going to want to enter the paint. Not that Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond are the best rim protectors, but they're a lot larger than him. Trae Young has a very small frame, so there's going to be a lot of outside shots. Has me liking him more on DraftKings, right? Because we get the 3-point bonus over there too.
For sure.
So plus you mentioned double doubles. I mean, 8 assists or more in 4 straight. So it's we also get the bonus over, right? So I mean, I like him on all platforms. I just think I like him slightly more on DraftKings.
Yeah, I agree with you there. You mentioned sort of Derrick Rose already. You're a big Derrick Rose guy. Have been all season. Have been since being a Bulls fan. Right. in your young life, growing up watching Derrick Rose. 38 against LA, which is decent. I mean, but he had only 38 fantasy points while putting up 31 actual points. So I think, while that's great, especially at 6K, that would have gotten you, almost 6 or 7 extra return rather. I feel like I want to see a little bit more fantasy point production for a guy that's scoring 30 actual points.
Which I completely agree, and I think the 7 threes was kind of an aberration too. It's not like we're going to see Derrick Rose hit 7 threes in many basketball games going forward. But it's not like the matchup gets any worse. Like he had a great matchup in LA and now has maybe an individually better matchup against De'Aaron Fox. Fox has 113 defensive rating himself. The Kings ranked 25 or 25th against point guards. And Rose is just scoring. Whether Butler's active, whether he's inactive, whoever's active and inactive, like we might be entering the territory where when Jeff Teague returns, Derrick Rose might keep the starting job. How about that? How about them apples?
You can hope for that. That's fine. Tyler Johnson, no Goran Dragic. He didn't start last game, but came off the bench. Still played 31 minutes. He got his fantasy production because of 4 steals. He does get a couple steals here and there. I think that's a little bit tough for him to expect again, another 4 steals. I want to see more scoring out of him. We've seen him put up some decent scoring numbers before. We're looking at back-to-back games of just 9 points now. Only $4,700 on FanDuel. On DraftKings, Tyler Johnson is 43, so good price tag still. And again, I think he's going to be pretty popular tonight as well, even though Indiana's front court is pretty decent defensively. Or backcourt.
Yeah. And I like Johnson. I think we can go there. They don't have, they're using all their other guards in their starting lineup. They're starting every other guard but Tyler Johnson. So, he has to play minutes. We saw him over 30 last game. I just, don't force it. Especially in a tournament. I think he's fine for cash. Don't force him into a tournament lineup. A pivot you can go to, I think tonight is DJ Augustine. Washington ranks 29th against point guards this year, and Augustine's gone for 30 or more in 2 of the last 3 games. So, that's a tournament pivot you can go to who's going to be far less owned in a nice total, and John Wall may be good, in the passing lanes, but he's not a great individual on-ball defender. So, I think they're 2 interesting plays, and then obviously we got to talk about I'll let you talk about him first, but Terry Rozier, on DraftKings at least, he's probably the chalk play because he's only 4.9K. FanDuel, they had the scoop last night apparently boosting him up to 6.2K. You got to think about it there. You really have to think about if it's worth it over there. But I think 4.9K, he's probably the chalk on DraftKings, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, the offensive upside with him is certainly greater. I question, there's a little game, I think, being played right now with the Celtics and Rozier because Rozier's camp is being pretty vocal that he wants to play more minutes, he wants a larger role, and maybe he even wants to get him out of Boston. The Celtics are saying, there's really no need for them to trade Rozier. He's an integral part of their team. They want him to be part of, their drive for championships this year, and they'll figure out his contract status later. I think that comes at a clash. I don't know if necessarily they want to play him. I think playing him will certainly help if he has a big game tonight, help his trade chances. But I also think they might go more Marcus Smart heavy in this one, and keep Rozier on the bench, let him play his 20 to 25 minutes, and you'll see Smart maybe play over 30 tonight as a primary ball handler. Because Smart's a better overall point guard than Rozier, and he plays better defense than Rozier. Rozier's just the more upside scorer. Someone that I'm actually looking at here, and again, this is going to be totally dependent on the Oladipo news, it's actually Corey Joseph. If you look at some of his recent gameplay, he played 31 minutes against Philadelphia. It's gone over 20 and 30 a handful of times, really, over the last stretch of games. We've seen him be productive before when he's sort of been in the starting lineup. He can play the off guard. So that's something I'm going to be sort of looking at is if Oladipo does get ruled out, everybody's going to flock to Tyreke Evans, and that's going to be sort of the chalkier play. But Corey Joseph could go under-owned. He's $3,900 on FanDuel. On DraftKings, he's currently priced up at, pull that up now, $3,600. So, again, I think there's an interesting spot maybe to pivot to him as a low-owned pivot off of Tyreke if Oladipo does end up being ruled out.
Yeah, I think both him and Darren Collison are fine. I think they'd both be lowish owned. I think Darren Collison was a sneaky GPP play to begin with, and they're probably both equally as viable in tournaments if Oladipo sits.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Are you winning tonight or no?
I am not. No Linning tonight.
No winning. Okay. Let's jump over to shooting guard. Jimmy Butler again. Question: we have to figure out if he's going to play or not. Earlier report came out said he was unsure, and now there's a report coming out saying that he is expected to play against the Kings. I don't really like the flip flop. I don't like that it's a 10 o'clock game.
Yeah.
So unless I'm on DraftKings, then maybe I'm probably not going to play any Jimmy Butler. Even then, if you play him and he's ruled out, it's the last game of the slate. There's no comparable pivot to him on either team, really, either in terms of salary. So you'll really have to be doing like a game stack, or maybe you play the late slate and you'll figure it out that way. The second price shooting guard is Victor Oladipo. We don't know if he's going to play. Donovan Mitchell, who I thought would have been a decent option given the starting five the Celtics would have rolled out with Kyrie. Well, now if we think Marcus Smart's going to start, I don't think that's great for Mitchell's value there, because I had to think that Smart will be the man on him, which brings me down to Bradley Beal. And maybe Bradley Beal versus Orlando is where we start looking at shooting guards.
If I told you that the Celtics ranked 26th against shooting guards this year, what would you say then?
No, that would be fine, because the starting unit for the Celtics haven't been good defensively.
Right.
Aside from like Horford, I think has a good defensive rating. Hayward hasn't really been good defensive. Jaylen Brown's been on like a different planet right now. He's not really scoring the ball well. He's not playing well overall. Right. But I trust if Smart's on the floor that he's going to boost up that defense. I think he's going to take their best player. So that's sort of my thinking there. I'm not going to trust the numbers with Kyrie on the floor versus Smart on the floor,
Okay, that's fair. I just wanted to.
It's a good valid. It's a valid point to bring up. I just have to look at the personnel that could be on the floor tonight and think that Irving's defensive presence and the way the rest of the starting unit has played. I mean, last night was just a tale. They gave up like 30 points in the first quarter to Phoenix. I mean, so I think Smart could certainly help that.
Okay. I think Mitchell is more of a play. Like, I wouldn't touch him at 8.8K on DraftKings or on FanDuel, but he's only 7.1K on FanDuel. And we mentioned on the podcast last night, if he gets going
on FanDuel, is he 7.1K on DraftKings?
7.1 on DraftKings. If he gets going 7.1, I mean, there's a lot of upside.
I do also worry that maybe the Celtics get blown out here. We are talking about a back-to-back, a game they just had to play in overtime in Phoenix. Now they're going into Utah, which is a tough pace to play without their top scorer and Kyrie Irving, where realistically everybody else on the team is struggling aside from like him and Marcus Morris to score the basketball. This is another game that could maybe get ugly pretty quickly. And then, maybe Mitchell doesn't play as many minutes. This is a risk game for me. I don't love it really from either side. Maybe it's tough for me to figure out, one, the way the game flow is going to work out, and two, who sees the minutes in like a blowout scenario.
Okay, that's fair. I have no arguments with any of that, what you just said.
Nice. What do you think about Bradley Beal versus Orlando?
I think he's too expensive on FanDuel, but I'd be willing to play him on DraftKings at 7.8.
Okay.
It's a good matchup, but 8.5K, we're looking for 42 just for 5X. And what's the upside at? Like, what's his upside after that,
Yeah, I think he's flashed 50 plus before.
I know. I just think like there's better spend downs. Like, we can go down and get Buddy Hield, who is scoring the ball just as well as Beal, or we can go down and get Fournier, who's basically handling the ball for the Magic.
No, that's fair. I'm a big Fournier guy. We played him last game, and it paid off big time. Do you touch Karis LeVert with the pending news of DeMar Carroll returning?
I think I am staying away from all Brooklyn players, except I think like a weird. I mean, Alan Crabb is just 3.7K, and we know he can score, and it's just like a random dart. And I'm not saying I'm going to play him, but he's 3.7. He's free. He's someone that we've seen shoot well in the past. That's about it that I play from Brooklyn tonight. I don't really like this rotation at all.
Yeah, that's totally acceptable. We talked about Trae Young, liking him against Detroit. Kent Bazemore's another guy I think sort of fits in that same mold. They're going to have to shoot from the outside. Bazemore does it, and he also chips in with steals and blocks and whatnot, which really helps you get those peripheral stats. Again, Bazemore is kind of a guy that, he really kills me on most nights, but I did play him the other night, had a decent little game. So, if you're playing some of those 20 maxes or, max entry GPPs, Bazemore is worth throwing into one of those because he does have a ceiling that if he does go off can really separate you from the field. I'm not a guy that's usually highly owned, just kind of given his volatility.
I'm so proud of you talking about Bazemore so positively.
Yeah, I know it hurts, but I mean, again, you can't have biases in DFS.
Right.
Like we keep on talking about it, so you have to figure it out and play him in spots where he can be successful. You talked a lot about Gary Harris early in this year, kind of faded off him a little bit, but now we're going against Brooklyn. The numbers still aren't terrible. 18.5 points, 3.8 rebounds, 3.1 assists, and he gets you about 2 steals a game. Any interest here with Harris against Brooklyn?
I think there's blowout potential, so I'm kind of off him. Like, I think Harris is best suited for cash games, and if he's like, if we play game theory and it's only 3 quarters, he won't get us there. I know he's not too expensive, but we need 4 quarters of Gary Harris, especially for cash games, and I think it's a little too volatile right now because the potential blowout.
That's fine. Any cheaper shooting guards on your radar tonight?
Wayne Ellington, baby.
Talk about him.
Lock him in. I mean, 37 minutes last year. If you recall how Eric Spoelstra handled his rotation, Ellington was in it every single night, regardless of who was healthy and who wasn't. The guy
once Waiters went down, it was the Ellington show. So.
Right, 30 minutes a night for a guy who, because we know Spoelstra likes to space the floor, and that's what he does. That's why he ran essentially a 4 hybrid guard forward lineup the other night in their starting rotation to pair with Whiteside. So they didn't do a good job at bumping his price, and it's something that we need to take advantage of in all formats.
Yeah, I won't argue with there. Let's jump over to shooting guard. Josh Richardson's a top shooting guard over on FanDuel. Last night when small forward.
Small forward.
Last night when small forward was stacked. We had to pick between George and Durant and Giannis and all those guys. It was difficult to figure out who to spend up for. Tonight, Richardson's a top small forward on FanDuel, and then it sort of just trickles down in terms of cost. No one's more than $7K except for him. Obviously, Richardson's a guy you and I both love in this matchup against Indiana, especially if Oladipo's off the floor. Not that he probably would have seen a lot of Oladipo, but Bojan is a terrible defender. Tyreek, I don't think, has any interest in playing a lot of defense either.
No.
Maybe he draws Thad. Thad can play a little defense, but I think Richardson's sort of another plug and play here.
Yeah, and I think he's the more contrarian of the bunch because I think the ownership is going to go towards Johnson, it's going to go towards Justice Winslow, and it's going to go towards Ellington. So I think I think people still look at Richardson's price and they're like, no, we can't play this guy. But like, you're wrong. He took 22 shots without Dragic last game, and he went 6 for 22 and gave us over 30. If he goes 10 for 22 or 12 for 22, I mean, the guy gives us 40 plus. So there's a lot of upside here for Richardson. The shot just needs to fall. He does it all in the box score. So the shot just needs to fall in order for us to hit and exceed value. And like I said, it's the contrarian option to all of them because he's expensive and the other players are not.
Yeah, for sure. What other small forwards are you looking at tonight?
I think we go back to with Andrew Wiggins here. I just think that this defense and the way he's stealing passes is a real thing, and he's contributing elsewhere. 4 rebounds, chipping in, a couple assists, a couple of steals. The scoring is efficient too, which is not something we've ever seen. So I think Wiggins is someone I'm willing to use in that game total 232, and Sacramento plays at the second fastest pace in the NBA. So we're getting more possessions for the Timberwolves. So I like Wiggins. Taurean Prince as a GPP guy. Nemanja Bjelica as a GPP guy. I think I mentioned Justice Winslow. Cash, any format you want. He was 7 for 17. If we ever get Justice Winslow 17 shots, I mean, he took the shots, and we usually get peripheral stats out of him, and we didn't. So, if he continues taking the shots and he gets to peripherals, I think there's a way higher ceiling than we're used to seeing. And I think you can go down to Jay Crowder. I think he's safe game theory wise. He should be on the floor a lot with Jason Tatum and Marcus Morris. I don't think Derek Favors can really chase them around the 3-point line. And you mentioned Tyreek Evans, right? A wild card of the slate potentially. This is a guy we saw go for 50 at times last year.
He has a 32% usage rate, averaging 1.14 fantasy points per minute with Oladipo off the floor this year.
I mean, what more do you need? I think this is definitely a player where if you are building a lot of lineups, you can play him on FanDuel, but you especially build lineups with him on DraftKings. Obviously, you have a pivot because you'll be until 8 o'clock. We'll be able to late swap. So I think you really want to get your exposure on DraftKings, and if you're building a lot of lineups, you get your exposure on FanDuel.
I mean, this is a guy that we saw last year when starting had 50, 60 fantasy point upside because he does everything, and he's a pretty elite scorer when he wants to take over games, So, no, I agree with you a lot. 4.4K FanDuel, 4.1K DraftKings. Even on FanDuel, if you want to throw him in your lineup, he still has a role in this rotation. He plays 20 minutes or so, anyways. Maybe Oladipo starts, gets sick still, or gets to come out of the game. Maybe he can't play 100%, but he wants to go give it a go. And at worst case, you're still getting a player that's probably going to give you 20 fantasy points. And if he doesn't work out, FanDuel gets rid of your lowest score. So if you want to play some safer punt options, maybe consider Tyreek that riskier player you put in your lineup for GPPs. That can pay off in a big way. And if he doesn't go for what you hope for, they don't count it anyway. So for me, I think he's still a play in all formats. Obviously, less riskier on DraftKings. You can swap him out. Right. But then again, you have to swap him out for a guy that's 4K. So there's going to be a little bit more roster movement around there. Any other small forwards on your radar here?
No, we can move on to power forward.
All right, let's jump over to power forward. We didn't talk about Gordon Hayward revenge. His first game in a Celtics uniform playing in Utah. No Kyrie. Maybe they finally take the minutes limit off him. Who knows? We'll just
back to back. I'm worried about the back to back. If do you think they would take limits on a second night of back to back? I feel like they would do it on a.
But there could be more shots from him when he's on the floor for the 25 minutes.
Agreed. And I think because of his price, he's fine in a tournament. I think he's okay.
54 on FanDuel, over on DraftKings. He's 5K. Still not getting updates. Not the updates I'm looking for here. Let me know about Oladipo. Blake Griffin tops off power forward. I think he is about as safe as you can possibly get.
Yep.
It's all dependent on if you want to pay the $9,800 on FanDuel for him. What do you have for his DraftKings price?
His DraftKings price is $10,000.
Yeah, so about the same cost. Again, you have to figure out if that's your spend out spot or not, or if you think there's enough value, you can use him and somebody else. But there's a big gap, at least on FanDuel, between him and the next price guy, which is Aaron Gordon at $7,900. Gordon also in a good spot here against Markieff Morris, more athletic than him. And you sort of like this Washington-Orlando game, high scoring, close spread. Are you paying up for Blake? Or are you looking for more of the mid-tier cost power forward?
I mean, I think Blake is really in a smash spot. Atlanta is one of the worst rebounding teams. They rank 21st in rebounding on the year. So, I mean, Blake, we're not going to see Blake grab 4 rebounds again. That was just an aberration, complete aberration. They rank 28th against power forwards, and they're playing at the fastest pace. And, Blake likes to use his athleticism to get out and run and catch lobs. I know it's not the same Blake as we saw in the clip, but we're getting there. We've seen the athleticism back. So I think I'm more than comfortable going to Blake at either price tag. And I think Aaron Gordon is in a really good spot too. We're finally seeing. I don't know why Jonathan Isaac was the guy to spark it. Jonathan Isaac doesn't really do a whole lot with the ball, but he sparked all this. And I think Aaron Gordon's in a really good spot. But I think both of our boys, our guy tonight is Sabonis, right? I love Sabonis, even though he's going up against Whiteside. Just everything's on the rise. The minutes, the production. And the fouls are on the decline, which is, I think, really important to note because he gets foul happy at times. But he's such a fantasy point per minute guy when he sees minutes. And it's 27, 30, 32 the last 3 games. So I don't know about you, but I love me some Sabonis for tournaments.
So I definitely do like him on most nights. And if I like the trend we're seeing with his minutes, 27, 30, 31 last 3 games, I would like to see that continue tonight. What worries me is I just saw Whiteside pretty much just shut down LaMarcus Aldridge, held him to 2 for 16 shooting. I feel like Aldridge's offensive game is better than Sabonis's.
Okay.
I think Sabonis plays a lot in the paint, and that's sort of where Whiteside lives and gets all his block shots. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm in love with Sabonis tonight, but this could be another game where we think Whiteside's going to be the guy, and he goes and plays 22 minutes, and Sabonis is rebounding against the backups, and he gets all his production. I don't hate it for GPPs. I don't know if he's a cash game for me. Someone we sort of identified on the podcast, and you've since just really taken to here, is Taj Gibson.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think there was a ceiling, but we saw the last 2 games he's gone for 33 and 43 DraftKings points. So, something you mentioned on the pod too, Thibodeau plays his starters, period. Plays them 30-plus minutes every night, and that's what we're seeing out of Gibson. As long as he's productive, we get a pace-up spot, we get a massive total, and a guy who's producing. I think that's viable for any formats, and, he's probably the overlooked Timberwolf tonight, especially in tournaments. And I think that'd be silly because he has such a clear advantage over Nemanja Bjelica, on the glass, physicality-wise. And Taj is still a very good shot blocker. So I think there is, a nice floor for cash games, and I still think there's an upside for tournaments as well.
No, I agree with you there. Another couple guys that we like, we'll run through real quick here. We both like Marcus Morris. We think he could potentially be the guy to pick up the offense with Irving off the floor. You and I are big Trey Lyles guys. We hope he continues to see minutes, gets Brooklyn tonight. That's obviously always a positive matchup for guys at the power forward center spots. Amari Spellman's a guy you talked about on the podcast. 28 minutes, 18 and 10, 4 assists, 3 blocks last game. Atlanta's going to need some bigs on the floor against Drummond and against Griffin, so I can certainly see him continuing to be a guy that pushes 28 to 30 minutes in Atlanta. Any other power forwards I might have gassed over?
I think Tatum for tournaments.
Okay.
In a nice bounce back spot. But other than that, no, you hit it on the head.
Cool. Let's finish it up real quick here at center. We both agree Joel Embiid is in really just the best spot, one of his better matchups of the year, a matchup that he already had 51 fantasy points against, 27 points, 15 rebounds against Charlotte earlier this year. Cody Zeller, Hernan Gomez, those 2 guys are not going to be able to defend him.
Right.
So it's really, the choice is, do you pay up for Embiid? Do you pay up for Drummond? Where's your spend up spot at center?
Drummond's the guy. For all the same things I just said about Blake applies to Drummond as well. Plus Drummond has 19-plus rebounds in 3 of the last 4 games. Alex Len foul happy. It's easy. I mean, I love Embiid too. It's just we get a discount for going to Drummond. So I kind of prefer Andre here.
That's fine. Are you chasing the Whiteside points?
You can. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I feel like 9,100 is a little pricey, but on DraftKings 8.2 is fine. Same starting. It's going to be the same starting lineup. Miles Turner. Indiana's 28th in rebounding. So could we say another 20 rebound game's coming? I think so. There's no other big on the floor with Whiteside, so I think we could get another 20 rebound game here.
Do you believe in the Dwight Howard revenge nav going back to
100%, 1,000%. He's going to get booed off the floor, and I feel like that always fuels Dwight Howard. Always fuels Dwight Howard. Anytime he's getting booed, you see him smiling, and he seems more relaxed almost, which is sick. It's so sick in the head. But yeah, I love Dwight tonight, and I know it's gonna kill me, but I think Dwight viable for all formats.
Oh no. In 4 games last year against Orlando, obviously he was a member of the Hornets. 18 points, 12 rebounds, 1.8 blocks per game.
Yep.
So definitely does take a liking to playing them. Finish it up. Any final centers you're looking at here?
I think Cauley Stein in the tournament. Karl Anthony Towns, 112 defensive rating, highest total on the board. We keep stressing that enough. He's going to be super low owned. Jokic is the one nugget I'm interested in because I think if it's a blowout, somebody has to pop off, and I think Jokic obviously has that upside. And no, I'm done with there's no punt centers. I'm paying up for centers. I think Gobert could be fine for cash games too.
Yep, I agree with you there. All right, that wraps up today's live stream. James and I will be in the subscriber chat up until roster lock, updating any injury news. Hopefully figuring out if Oladipo is going to play or not.
On track to play.
On track to play. Great news there. I like them both. And I definitely like Oladipo in this matchup here against Miami. It's a good spot for him. We'll catch you guys next live stream Monday, right?
Yep, Monday.
All right, we'll see you guys Monday.
Later, guys.